what is the United States' objective when it comes to potential strikes inside Iran, and what would that look like? But there's definitely one interesting development in the last 24 hours that I think if the United States wanted to conduct offensive operations inside Iran, again, with air power, it'd be a huge problem. But let's look at what has transpired just recently. First, President Trump said another armada is heading that way. The president has also stated, hopefully Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons, one that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran before, make a deal. So what is the objective? No nuclear weapons? This seems to be the battle cry. This has been the battle cry for decades. Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. This was the tripping point, or one of the tripping points for the 12-day war, as well as the kickoff to Operation Midnight Hammer. Again, removing Iran's capability to produce nuclear material, thus nuclear weapons. And ironically, I'm on the road right now filming podcasts with many of the pilots that conducted Operation Midnight Hammer, which I'll have coming out here in the next month or two. But I don't think this is going to be like Operation Midnight Hammer. This is not going to be a surgical strike if it is decided and acted upon. And it really comes down to what is the objective if the United States decides to conduct an operation. I think that is the million-dollar question. What is the desired end state? Is it to support the protesters to overthrow the regime? Is it to stop nuclear weapons? A combination of both? Fraction the country, create a power vacuum and chaos so that it is an unstable nation in the region? There's a lot of questions surrounding what that desired end state might look like, and definitely an operation into Iran, again, would not look like Operation Midnight Hammer. The regime has had months to prepare, reassess, re-equip, so that it doesn't find itself in the same situation, just having been attacked by stealth bombers in an armada of military aircraft. They definitely cannot let that happen again. That's at least what I would be thinking if I was an Iranian regime leader. There's been tremendous unrest in the country with tens of thousands of people being reported killed in an uprising against the regime. So they're facing a lot of turmoil internally. They've been attacked externally. If they haven't gone underground and figured out how to strengthen their position, I'm not sure what they're doing. The U.S. has outlined what the deal is, what the minimum requirement for a deal to be accepted. Permanent end to all enrichment of uranium at sites throughout Iran. Limits on the range and number of long-range ballistic missiles maintained by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. It does seem problematic since they really like those ballistic missiles at attacking their neighbors. And the last, end all support for proxy groups in the Middle East, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis operating in Yemen. Also, they like operating via proxies to deliver their message and their objectives, so that might be problematic as well. I'm not holding my breath that Iran is going to come to terms with that. But regardless, the issue that's popped up in the last couple of days is the fact that both the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have both said no overflight, no operations out of utilizing their airspace, their land, or their territorial waters for operations to be conducted into or against Iran. Now, this is a big problem set when we look at the geography of the region and just taking a look at the map here. Let's look at how strikes were conducted during Operation Midnight Hammer and what might happen for future follow-on strikes inside Iran. So first, if we just looked at Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, that's a large swath of territory when it comes to airspace, when it comes to land. Not to mention that we have strategic bases located in these countries. So by their terms that they've outlined publicly, no military aircraft can operate out of these bases and be utilized for a strike inside Iran. So they would have to be relocated. Relocating fighters, bombers, tankers, personnel is no small feat. Building up a base, while possible, is not something that you can necessarily do overnight, not at this scale. We know that the USS Abraham Lincoln has sailed into the region. And by sail, I guess I mean nuclear power. Any operations they're conducting most likely would be coming from the south. Now, they could snake their way up through the Gulf of Oman into the Persian Gulf. However, this is really a narrow space of water. Aircraft have a limited approach capability, but nonetheless, it can be done. They're just very limited with no overflight of the UAE, Oman potentially, and definitely not Saudi Arabia. And as I alluded to, Oman hasn't officially come out and said it, but there is back channeling that apparently they have also joined, it said, Omani airspace, territory, and territorial waters cannot be used. So again, that really starts limiting the options for that. Now, what that opens up and leaves open rather is Iraq. They don't want us doing it either. However, they don't really have the means to stop us from doing it. But nonetheless, when it comes to an approach into Iran, that limits the window of where aircraft can fly. It's not impossible. It's not the worst thing, but it is limiting. The biggest piece here, I think, would be the fact that our aircraft and bases in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates would be off limits for operations. The next problem I see here is the element of surprise is long gone. There is no question that the U.S. is building a massive force in the region. It's been all over the news, all over social media. And now our track record is build up, big operation. Build up, big operation. We saw it as Operation Midnight Hammer and then Operation Absolute Resolve. So would an operation now look similar to each of those? I don't think so. You've now amassed a whole host of aircraft to go out there and conduct operations, potentially sustained operations. But what do I do if I was the Iranian regime? First and foremost, as much as the United States has touted USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group as our armada, these guys love propaganda. And striking a ship inside that carrier strike group would have to be up on their top priority list. This would be a huge military win for them, but also a massive propaganda win for them. We're already seeing all these AI videos pop up with them threatening the carrier and the carrier strike group. And I don't know if anyone remembers when the Israelis conducted some of their first operations into Iran back in the summer of 2025, and they claimed to have shot down an F-35. And the AI image they generated from it was this massive jet. Like there was no, it was either the people were ants or the jet was made for giants. So the propaganda machine is churning at full tilt. And this would be a huge win. It would also show their military might. So from a propaganda standpoint, from a military standpoint, them going after the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is up there. That is heavily defended. But again, I don't think you can discount the threat that exists from the Iranian regime when it comes to this, and the might and determination of your enemy cannot be discounted. Now, we have not seen any verified open source reporting of proxies, such as the Chinese or the Russians, helping Iranians with hypersonic missiles. This would probably be one of the biggest threats to the carrier strike group. However, we have seen missile technology and drone technology being shared amongst the three of them. So saying that hypersonic missile technology has not been transferred, or the fact that they haven't developed it, I would have been in my laboratory for the last 6-7 months trying to develop hypersonic missiles. And that makes it sound easier than it is for sure. But again, not to discount that the determination of your adversary, one that got punched in the face, not thinking that they're determined to strike back is a grave mistake. So the Iranians have definitely been poked in the eye, and I undoubtedly believe they want to poke back. So what could this strike potentially look like? There is talks of a regime change. President Trump has called out saying, hey, help us on the way to protesters, although I think that was 2 weeks ago. And if that's help to the protesters, that ship is probably sailed. So now what it look like precision strikes on high-value target areas and potential leadership inside the Iranian regime? Maybe. But this is not going to be like Venezuela. We're just going after one individual, very surgical. Again, the element of surprise have been removed. They know that they've been struck before. They have hardened facilities. They have gone underground. So going in and conducting operations and launching after dinner time and being home before breakfast and the sun comes up, this is not how this one's going to play out. This would have to be prolonged operations. And there aren't many examples where air operations alone win the battle. But maybe the objective here is to sever leadership from the Iranian regime, create chaos, create factions inside that nation, making the nation much weaker, presenting problems potentially down the road with power vacuums, warlords rising to power, but weakening the strength of the Iranian regime. Let me know your thoughts down below. And you want to make sure that you check out our Lowdown newsletter, which is linked down below. This week, I guarantee you we'll have a thread of the day, which ties to Iran, just with the theme that's going on here. So make sure you check that out below. I'll see you next time.